Africa, your time is now. Benge Oyebote, co-founder and chairman. Aluko in Oyebote, trustee, Ford Foundation. A tall black African man in a black suit and blue tie. Hillary Pennington, executive vice president, global programs, Ford Foundation. A white woman with short blonde hair wearing a white dress.
Please welcome Benga Oyebote and Hillary Pennington.
Hello.
Hi, Hillary.
If there is a place where injustice and justice come together in very complex ways, it is the continent where you and I were both born, the continent of Africa.
Yes.
A place that attracts significant philanthropic attention with more than 1.2 billion people from 3,000 different ethnic groups, speaking more than 2,000 different languages, located in 54 distinct countries. Africa is not a country.
No, it's not.
It is a diverse and a complex continent. We're not just talking about one place when we talk about philanthropy in Africa.
Yes.
And it is also a place of incredible growth and change, where there's a lot of innovation that is leapfrogging old systems. And arguably the same may be true for philanthropy as well. So I wanted to start out with you, with your own journey, how you came into philanthropy and how you think about it, because you are one of the most distinguished leaders in this emerging sector in the continent.
Thank you, Hillary. One other piece of statistics that I will add to that, which actually complicates it further, is that in 25 years, there will be 2.5 billion people on the continent.
2.5 billion.
And so imagine that a country like Nigeria that has 200 million people today will be 400 million people. The city of Lagos, where I live, is 20 million people today. Will be the third biggest city in the world and will be 40 million people. Further complicates an already dire situation.
And young, a very young continent.
Extremely young. Over 60% of the population is under 35. So that's what we're dealing with. How did I come to this? I think when you live on a continent like Africa, where there's significant gaps that you see in almost everything that you look at, whether it's in education, it's in healthcare, just in infrastructure, you really have to stop and think. Mm-hmm. And especially where you've been blessed by fortune. You've been fortunate in your ability to drive change. And so for me, it was always about what else do we need to do? How do we give back? How do we change things? How do we make sure that the continent doesn't remain a basket case? Mm-hmm. How do we push the envelope such that for those of us that see an opportunity to give back, that we continue to talk about it, advocate for it, be ambassadors for it, but more importantly, get our hands dirty.
What do you see among your fellow philanthropists as they come into philanthropy? How are they getting started?
We're at that stage where the families are starting to think of strategic type giving. Mm-hmm. We're starting to put foundations in place. One of the things that I think interests me the most is how the corporates on the continent already are setting up foundations. So as you go across the continent, most of the major financial institutions, the major telcos, already have foundations in place in all the different countries where they operate. The perspective being that they would like to change things in those jurisdictions. I'm seeing a lot of philanthropists that are oligarchs, who essentially understand that they cannot survive if they do not change things. And that they cannot rely on governments. First, because of declining revenues. Most of the governments are commodities-driven. Commodity prices collapse. But the significantly wealthy in these environments needs to understand that they need to give back, and such that we can force change.
Right. We were talking a little bit in the back about impact investing. Yes. And the real interest and enthusiasm about it on the continent. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that evolving?
What I started to see about impact investing is that you don't need to really look at the continent from the perspective of just we're giving. You could actually look at the continent from the perspective of an economic return. However, inherent in that economic return is an investment, for instance, in education. There's a great university, the African Leadership University, that is a for-profit institution. except that it is a change in the way that we run education on the continent. That in itself is a model that I think that we should all look at. So it's not really necessarily about philanthropy as in giving, but it's also about investing with a social impact, but also with an economic return.
Well, I think that's hugely important and a very different approach than development aid. So I'm curious, from where you sit, what do you wish international donors, whether it's development aid or philanthropists, knew and did differently as they work on the continent?
Over the last maybe 20 years again, we started seeing a change in the way that international NGOs and philanthropists have focused on the continent. Hitherto, it was always an investment or a collaboration with governments, and we never really saw the change that was promised. Today, we're starting to see significant collaboration with local civil society organizations, local NGOs, such that we're starting to identify not just the symptoms, but let's deal with the disease. So if you said to me today, what is the biggest change and what are the change agents that I'm looking at? Education and leadership. Education such that our people will vote, will not vote ethnicity and religion.
Yeah.
Education such that they know the difference. Leadership such that they will make the right decision in their leaders. That, for me, is the kind of change that I would like to see across the continent.
I'm curious, what do you think about the relative need for or benefits of institutional philanthropies like a Ford Foundation or a Rockefeller Foundation? My impression is that most people who are coming into philanthropy on the continent are not really setting up independent foundations. Like Henry Ford had the vision to say, I want to create an independent institution, even independent of my family, that's going to live in perpetuity to keep solving problems. Do you think that's a good idea in the context of Africa?
I think it is. As you know, I sit on the board of the Africa Philanthropy Forum, and the APF was supported by Ford Foundation. One of the things that we're trying to do with the APF is really to get, so you're across the continent, one of the strong cultural things that we see is how giving is part of our culture, except that it's so unstructured. It's not strategic. And so what are we doing at the APF? Through our regional conferences and seminars across the continent, we're trying to say to people, let's sit back and do this in a very strategic way. Let's determine what's the sector that we want to give to. If you don't have a foundation, let's we have a toolkit that we've circulated. Let's focus attention on how do we do this in a way that you can collaborate across the continent, where you can give strategically, where you can give to particular needs in society. And so that in itself is a change that I'm seeing in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Kenya, and in Northern Africa. And I think increasingly that will be the model that you see. Obviously, it's critical that, one of the things that I think is important is that collaboration.
So I want to thank you. I do think from where we sit as well that there is an opportunity that going back to the importance of partnership and not going it alone and only it being about your brand, for us to be learning from what's happening on the continent and from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hillary.
New Gospel of Wealth. What does hashtag generosity to justice look like to you? FordFoundation.org/New Gospel.